All right, greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, your home for the apocalypse, for episode 69. 69, dude. Episode 69 for Tiny Wastelands. I am the apocalypse nerd. He is Item Bomb Glancy. Special guest tonight is Alan Barr from Gallant Knight Games, the publisher of Tiny Wastelands.
Hey, how's it going?
And so what we're going to be talking about tonight is Tiny Wastelands. Tiny Wastelands is currently a Kickstarter project that is successfully funded, very successfully funded.
That's putting it mildly.
Yep, it's doing very well. And it is a post-apocalyptic role-playing game. So paper, pencil, tabletop games, so you folks know. So we are going to talk about his game. As you know, we've had other Kickstarter and other game developers on the show before, just to talk about their games, because again, we love all things the apocalypse, so we like to help all our friends of the apocalypse by getting them on to help promote their apocalyptic content and get the word out to other friends of the apocalypse. So I'm not really going to talk anything much about any kind of in the news this week, because I've been posting some stuff on the channel, on the blog, and you'll see that there's some TV shows, some movies coming out. There's a bunch of post-apocalyptic role-playing games. On the Kickstarter. It's like I haven't done this in a month, so I lose my brain. So I got some stuff coming up there, but I'm just going to go ahead and let's just dive into the show and let's talk about Tiny Wastelands. So. All right, Alan, we are going to, and it would be really helpful if I had my list of questions in front of me. Okay, there you go.
I have it in front of me, so I get to start. Tell us about yourself, Alan. I've cut Jared off at the pass. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Alan.
Sure. So I'm Alan Barr. I run and operate Gallant Knight Games, a tabletop gaming company, primarily focused on role-playing, but we do some card and board on the side. Well, what to tell? This is my full-time gig. I make games all day long. I love it. I don't know. I'm not that exciting. I mean,
well, we approve of your decor. You have rigged out your room in proper nerd fashion. All the way from the starships on top and the katana and the wakizashi. Is that a Cthulhu in the corner over there, or am I just
right over here?
Yes.
No, that's a pile of dice bags.
Oh, it's a pile of dice bags. Well, Cthulhu, pile of dice bags, they're almost the same thing. They both represent the uncaring, unfeeling universe and its complete indifference to our wants and needs.
I don't think you're wrong with that. I think that's spot on.
Yeah. Alan definitely fits the decor of what us nerds do. Like you can't see up on the top of my shelf, but I have a replica Hellraiser cube up there under glass, nice. A Pip-Boy, a mini nuke. I have
Jared, did you see the Blade Runner gun that's now available?
No.
Apparently you can get it on it's a working prop with a weapon from 2049, Blade Runner 2049. You can get it on a payment plan. They've actually set up payment plans for this thing. Like you can get it on layaway.
That means it's really expensive.
Oh my God.
but regardless, okay, so Alan, but instead of about yourself, then tell us a little bit more about Gallant Knight Games.
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, primarily role-playing games. The big flagship line is our Tiny D6 line, which is a minimalist take on role-playing games, very streamlined, rules light. We also publish the post-apocalyptic RPG Atomic Highway, and some other games. We have a couple game lines, some OSR, some more experimental like pocket RPGs, and then I have several publishing partners I work with. So if you go to our website or our drive-through catalog, you'll see over 100 titles sitting in there. So there's a lot of variety and options.
Oh, so you do a lot of stuff on drive-through RPG?
Yep, drive-through RPG, and then our GallantKnightGames.com.
Okay, I should have posted about that, but I'll get that posted on stuff so people can head back to that. So
no worries.
Like I said, we're not professionals here, so
you posted to my Kickstarter, which is the thing I really care about right now. So that's okay.
All right, so all right, that's fantastic. So, and the Tiny D6 is the mechanic system that Tiny Wastelands uses, correct?
Yeah, it powers all the tiny RPGs.
Okay, cool. All right, so thanks for that. Now, next, we were going to say, let's talk about the game.
Sure.
Alan, give us a high-level overview of this game that you currently have on Kickstarter.
Yeah, so we'll start with the basic of the Tiny D6 system, and then I'll talk about what changes for Tiny Wastelands. So the basic system in Tiny D6 is you roll 2d6, and if either dice shows a 5 or 6, that's a successful action. All attacks do 1 damage. You have a collection of traits. Most characters have 3, plus 1 from their profession or heritage or class or whatever you call it. So 4 traits total. Traits will give you advantage. So, for example, the educated trait gives you advantage on knowledge tests. When you have advantage, you roll 3d6. If you roll a 5 or 6 on any of those dice, you do the thing. Then there is disadvantage where you roll 1d6. If you roll a 5 or 6 on that single dice, you do the thing. It's a very straightforward system. You can fit a character on a 3x5 note card with room to spare. Really, the goal of the system is to get out of the way.
Okay.
And that's good because that kind of goes along the line of, as you know, being gamers, and you do see a lot of debate out there, a lot about systems and systems aren't important, and it doesn't matter what game you play as long as you're role playing. And I see a lot of those debates, and this sounds like a good thing because it gives you just enough mechanics to accomplish the things that you need a system for. Because no matter what you're playing, you need a system. You need something. Because if you're not, then you're just LARPing. But even LARPing has a system.
Yeah, I mean, you need enough of the game to be a role-playing game, right?
Exactly. So that's cool. I don't. There's some minimalist systems I played in the past, like what is it? Atlas Games. On the Edge.
Okay. Over the Edge, yes, on the edge, yeah.
Is it on the edge or over the edge? One's a card game, one's the RPG. Over the edge, right. On the edge. So that was a minimal system because then it lets you focus more on the role playing and just have a little bit just to resolve things that you need to resolve. So
that's exactly the point here. So
that sounds fantastic. I'm a backer myself. Like I told you before, so I'm definitely curious to see how it turns out.
I will say, if anybody is curious, our first game. Tiny Frontiers, which is space opera, is pay what you want on Drive-Thru RPG now. Because there's a revised edition coming. It's our very first game, so there's a lot of first game issues.
Of course.
Obviously, which is why it's pay what you want, because we have a new edition coming that cleans up a lot of those problems for us.
Alan, can I ask you a question about your dice mechanic?
Sure, please.
When I understand how the idea that a trait can affect a particular kind of rolls, but one of my questions was, would let's say in Tiny Wastelands you acquire the last of the V8 interceptors? Would an item that you pick up also grant you the ability to add yet another dice, or is the maximum number of dice 3?
The maximum is 3, and the core mechanic states that disadvantage overrides advantage.
Okay,
that's a bit of a balancing issue. In order to have penalty, for example, if you have a trait that says you can give yourself disadvantage on an attack to do more damage,
okay,
that disadvantage needs to override the advantage. It can't come out at a wash, or there's a balance issue. But mutation traits, which I'll follow up with that in a second, and then pre-fall items give you advantage, and often that advantage cannot be negated.
Okay, so something like that could go up to 4 dice?
No, it caps at 3, but absolutely. It would ignore disadvantage.
Okay, that's actually that actually strikes me as kind of raw and brutal. That the chances for egregious failure exist even when you've maxed out the system.
It's not a system if you want to feel like a superhero all the time.
Okay,
but when Tiny Supers comes out, then you can do that, I suppose.
Fair enough.
We make some changes there.
Now, to get away from the mechanic of the system a little bit, this specific version game that you're putting out, Tiny Wastelands, what is Tiny Wasteland? How is that different than the space opera? Which it's kind of cool that you did a space opera one. I like that. what makes that different than that? So I assume it's about the apocalypse, but what is involved in this role playing game?
So I'll start with the mechanic differences, and then I'll go into the rest of the book. So mechanically, the differences are the introduction of mutation traits. Those are totally new. There's a whole new mechanic around mutation and gaining random mutation traits. Radiation poisoning, etc. There's a whole new set of mechanics around scavenging and gathering equipment that haven't existed before in the Tiny D6 system. And then the big kicker is the enclave mechanic. So the big catch of Tiny Wasteland that sets it apart from other post-apocalyptic RPGs, at least the ones I've played and read, of which I have many, but there's potentially somebody's already done this before somewhere, is that every 1 to 3 sessions, the year ends and you have to go back to your settlement and deal with the effects of supply and demand and raids. The enclave phase happens, and there is a thing called the reaping, where you're going to get raided. People are going to attack you. You have to deal with mounting insanity in your settlement that will decrease your population. Fuel and food can run out. These are actually statistics your settlement has that you have to manage as a player.
Okay.
And there's a series of rules for buildings that grant you things or provide some sort of benefit to the settlement. So you can gather resource dice by scavenging out in the wasteland and bring them back home. And you can expend those resource dice to defend the settlement, to build new buildings, to gain new resources, etc.
Does the settlement survival during the reaping depend on? Is the settlement like another character?
It's got its own attributes and stats and mechanics for management, and the players all cooperate together to support it.
Okay.
So the campaigns, I get so the campaign setting is really centered around your village and its survival.
In a large sense, the game is written to have that part be able. You can pull that out if you don't want to play with that. You don't have to. But I'm a big fan of the metagame in RPGs, things that are bigger than my character. I enjoy things that aren't just my one singular character. I like a family or a land to manage or an organization. And Tiny Wasteland adds a settlement that you can, if you want to play that game, be responsible for. And the big crux of the game becomes going out, gathering resources that your settlement needs to turn into resource dice to help provide for your settlement.
Well, so it's something you could take or leave, but keeping it adds adds more depth to the game.
I feel like I can't imagine playing Tiny Wastelands without it, but I freely admit I wrote that chapter because I love that kind of stuff.
No, it definitely sounds very interesting. So, from what I saw in the Kickstarter, it seems like the package that we're going to get, the book is it's set up. It consists of micro settings.
Yes. So micro settings are the other big difference between our books. So the rules for the game are only 40 pages in a small book, 8.5 by 5.5 book. That's not big. I mean, I can show you. I've got mine right here. Ugh. So this is our second one we did. This is Mechas and Monsters. And the rules are.
So it's like it's like a digest size. Your book.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the rules. These first 50 pages. The rest of the book, which is this big chunk, is what are called micro settings, which are high-level 6-page micro setting guides designed to sort of jumpstart your imagination. They're not detailed; they're more broad stroke settings that you can then take and make your own.
So it's kind of like an adventure starter. Not really.
They don't. They have some adventure prompts. They won't actually have an adventure in them.
Oh, okay. So it's really more the setting of you are.
This is why the apocalypse happened. Here are the challenges most people face in this time frame. If you want to run with this and then tweak it and change it, go nuts. It's only 6 pages. It's very high level. You can make it your own, but it's designed to sort of give a GM a jump start into a cool idea.
Oh, okay. So it's really more like the book consists of the mechanics and the revised mechanics for this particular setting,
right?
And then it gives you a big, from I see all the goals, stretch goals have been unlocked, a big amount of different settings that you can start.
I believe there's 12 different settings right now.
It was a lot. It was quite a bit.
Right, and they're all different, written by different authors.
Okay, so it's different. Okay, so it's like here's your zombie apocalypse, here's your robot apocalypse, here's your kaiju.
Here's your water world, here's your nuclear fallout, here's your eighth ice age, whatever we're on now. I don't actually know.
Okay, cool. So it's here's a setting that you could go and go.
Right. For example, we have 2 water ones. One is the flooding is actually currently happening, and so you're part of an apocalyptic city that's being slowly crushed inland. And that's a very different feel than one where, the world's been flooded for 100 years now.
And you're Kevin Costner. Yeah.
Right. Right. And then there's another one where the world's been flooded for a while, but pre-age myths of Atlantis are super impacting how societies operate. So between all of these, you have 3 different water worlds that feel very different.
Okay, very, very cool.
Mr. Wallace always likes an apocalypse that's in the middle of unfolding, as opposed to the sort of, this is your apocalypse, it's done.
We have several that are set that way.
Well, I do like, like something like Gam World. I do like it far, but I got a thing for like while it's going down, Yep,
you could easily use this to run that.
Oh, perfect. Cool. All right, so cool. That's very promising. It's very interesting. Got a lot of good source material. And my next question related to that would be, what inspired you to create this game?
Actually,
Wastelands.
Jared, let me parse that game that question just a little bit.
Okay.
2 parts. What inspired you to make the tiny, this tiny D6 system, based on the other mechanics you saw out there in the gaming world at the time? And then also, what inspired you to go with a post-apocalyptic setting for your latest project?
So Tiny D6 is sort of the result of, I go to a lot of conventions.
Gen Con
every year for the last couple of years.
I've gone every year since '98.
Well, you got me beat. I was 10 in '98. So I was not going to Gen Con.
You still could have went.
So the Tiny D6 system, because your character is, you pick a class and 3 traits and you're done. Mm-hmm. You can make a character in about a minute and get going real quick, and everybody has spare D6s laying around. So the Tiny D6 system isn't built for long multi-year campaigns.
Well, it sure as hell is prioritized and advantaged for, when I sit down at a table with something to run at Gen Con or a convention, and it's Call of Cthulhu, it's Delta Green, I have to generate these very deep characters,
and then teach everybody some pretty complex mechanics with lots of depth.
Yeah, right. If they're completely fresh. But
Tiny D6 is written for one-offs, short, 6-session campaigns in between your big campaign if you need a small break, conventions, that sort of teaching younger, newer role players, because the mechanics are so intuitive. Mm-hmm. It really is geared towards, I don't want to say filler games, but functionally, yes, filler games, right? And not in a negative sense, but this is engineered to fill the gaps. It can be your regular game. We play Tiny D6 all the time.
Yeah.
But, we don't play it for
I completely get
6
the idea
sessions in a row.
I completely get the idea of maximizing your ability to have anyone sit down at any time for any amount of time that you're going to play, and you can get something done rather than, the endless, go shopping, pick your character trait, that could happen in other. That's
really the goal of Tiny D6, is to fill that niche, because even some of the less complicated, old school rules like games, like Fate. Fate is not a hard game to teach, but it takes a while to set up Fate.
Mm-hmm.
You want to play Fate, right? So really, Tiny D6 is kind of engineered for that.
Man, I got to tell you, it's hard for some of us grognards to wrap our heads around how simple these mechanics are. Because back in the day, the original, Call of Cthulhu was considered a simple game compared to the stuff that was wandering around the 80s, like,
Twilight 2000.
Twilight 2000, or anything from Fantasy Games Unlimited.
Aftermath.
Yeah, exactly. Or everyone's favorite, was it Phoenix Command? Those games were like filling out your taxes.
Oh yeah, no, I played Rune Quest and even some of the older crunchy foreign ones. So I'm familiar with crunchy games. We love them. We play them. But Tiny D6 is definitely the far end of the seesaw there.
Oh, and you're right. You've definitely filled the niche because sometimes there is a need for that quick pickup game because a lot of times people say games are quick pickup and they're really not. This, like from everything you've described to us, is totally designed for that quick pickup. And there's nothing wrong with being a filler game as long as it's aware of it. Because a lot of times games are filler games and they're not really supposed to be filler. But this sounds great because it's like, you know what? Hey, Bob and John can't come to the game tonight. Let's do something else. Perfect for that.
And that's where one of my favorite tiny game we've made so far is our Mechas and Monsters, which is basically Pacific Rim. Right? You can make a giant robot or you can make a giant kaiju. And there's and the GM screen is basically a chart of when you throw somebody in a city, roll 3d6 to see what building they hit and what it does. Right? And so you're like, oh, everybody can't make it? All right, everybody. Here's a character sheet. Take 3 minutes, create a kaiju, create a mecha, and we're just going to go smash Chicago and move on, right? For one night. That's a great fun little different thing.
No, that's definitely I said I read the Kickstarter and I liked what I saw, but talking to Alan, to you right now, I like it even more than I originally liked it. So,
all right, well, you should upgrade your pledge then. That's what
I heard. Always upsell. Always upsell.
Oh yeah. Well,
no worries.
It's just I gotta.
Come on, Jared. You worked at McDonald's when you were 16. Always offer them the fries. That's how it works.
Would you like a hot apple pie with that? But
but yeah.
What about the inspiration for what made you want to do a post-apocalyptic setting?
Ironically enough, the original reason was because you couldn't get a print copy of Atomic Highway.
And
I loved Atomic Highway. And so I was like, well, I own Tiny D6. I can take some design cues from Atomic Highway and then add my own bits and flavor and kind of move on from there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, 2 months ago I bought Atomic Highway as a publisher, so now I own it, and now there's print copies everywhere in my house. So I'm not sure if I actually served the purpose, but
Yes, you did. You served the more apocalypse, the better. Really?
Yeah. Well, and they're different, right? Atomic Highway is a little crunchier. It's a little more geared for longer term play. And again, Tiny Wastelands is you want to sit down with your friends and try to survive for one night at Gen Con while everybody's drinking. These mechanics will let you do that.
It does sound like you can play it drunk. It's so simple.
I don't want to own up to anything, but it's possible I might have designed entire portions of the game.
There has been rigorous play testing
in all conditions.
Yeah.
Well, that's good because Scott has never played any game drunk before.
Never.
So.
Right. Never. But no. So I wanted a game, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So this bag
has your booze in it.
No, it has 3 different Tiny D6 games. 6 pencils, about 100 note cards, and about 30 dice. And I just take this when I go to cons. And it's this is an 8x11, an 8x11 RPG. Oh, look which one it is. And then, it's not huge, right? I can throw this in my backpack and I'm good to go with 4 different genres of role-playing game.
Yeah, well, that's why I have to take my laptop to conventions now, because there's no way I can bring 6 milk crates full of books.
Why
bring one bag?
That's nice. Good work, sir. It's you're doing the apocalypse. The apocalypse's work.
The Lord of the Wastelands work. You're doing the Lord of the Wastelands.
You're doing the Lord Humongous' work, sir.
There you go. That's the guy.
All right. Now that being said, because you're talking about Atomic Highway, another post-apocalyptic RPG that you now own and publish along with your own. When you were creating this game, I mean, what did you see missing from other post-apocalyptic games that this post-apocalyptic game provides?
Well, I mean, for Tiny D6, and a lot of it, the big draw is just the simplicity, right? The simplicity to play in multiple genres. and less so than providing something different to the genre. As a genre is about providing easy and simple mechanics to let more people access the genre, right?
Yes.
I'm not interested in, and this might sound terrible to you, but I'm not interested in revising how we view apocalyptic RPGs. I'm interested in getting an apocalyptic RPG into more hands of people that can play it easily.
No, that's valid. No, we're not saying it's not.
Right. So
No,
that's the big thing the game provides is the super simple mechanics.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just got to get them on the fucking bicycle.
Basically, I'm trying to get everybody back on training wheels, right?
Yeah.
And then the settlement mechanics are something I've always wanted in an RPG that I've never really had for the post-apocalypse stuff. So that part is the addition to the genre of new mechanics for apocalyptic RPGs. But overall, I think the goal is just the simple mechanics.
It's the kind of thing I think you could even plug into fantasy RPGs for whatever your stronghold or your freehold is. If your players aren't murder hobos, then
we have an ongoing magazine called Tiny Zine, and I am confident that the Enclave rules, once Tiny Wastelands is out, might make a fantasy appearance.
Cool.
Now, that being said, since it's the same mechanics for all your different genres, do they cross over easily? Can you take bits from one into another?
Totally. Yeah, they're literally written to do that. Like, I have a friend who, when he was playtesting, the whole thing he ran was he did 2 sessions of Mechas and Monsters where they basically tried to stop the apocalypse and failed. So they all got into a colony ship using tiny frontiers and shut off onto space, where they crashed a colony ship into an apocalyptic wasteland desert planet and had to play Tiny Wastelands as a playtest group.
Perfect. It all works. It all flows. That's good. I like to hear that. That's really cool. That you've made your universes interchangeable with each other and the mechanics, the whole thing. That's really cool. I'm really digging all this for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now, we already talked about the mechanics, so we're because folks, as you know, when we interview people, we try to have a structured question system so we don't go off on a tangent, but as much as we normally do. So we try to at least keep it somewhat focused. But we did talk about the mechanics. But let's talk about the project a little bit. I'm going to kind of just roll these together so you can just kind of talk all about it at once. This particular project, tell us, like how long it took. How long were you involved in this project? How long did it take to develop? What challenges did you encounter with this project, and what successes have you had from this project?
Sure. So I wrote it in about a day. Well, it's not hard. I've written about 12 Tiny D6 games, of which I think 4, or this is the 4th one coming out. So they don't take me long to write. And because they all use the same basic framework, I don't have to rewrite entire swaths of the rule book, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
I think I wrote it about in a day because it was mostly adding the new Wasteland themed mechanics. The playtesting took a while. I mean, we did 3 months of playtesting, give or take, over about 10 to 12 different groups. That was, and again, I mean, that was that. So actually, this project was on Kickstarter last year in June. At the time, Gallant Knight Games was owned by Nocturnal Media. At the end of June, when we were live on Kickstarter, the owner of Nocturnal Media, Stuart Week, passed away unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And so at the time, we canceled the project because we didn't know what the future was going to hold. I didn't feel comfortable taking money from folks, not knowing, what was happening, right? Since then, Gallant Knight Games has reverted back to me fully. And so,
Well, wait, time out. Hold on a second. So this all sounds familiar. Did you also do Clash of Steel?
The little card game?
Yeah.
No. So Ben Dutter was a publishing partner of Stewart's.
Oh, okay.
Gallant Knight Games was actually owned by Nocturnal Media, and I was a full-time employee at Nocturnal Media. I have worked with Ben a lot. I've been helping him with Clash of Steel.
Oh, okay. Because when you said he passed away, I was like, wait a minute. I've heard this story in other places.
If you've backed any of other projects, I'm the one always making updates. Prince Valiant, Talislanta, all that stuff.
Oh, so I've seen you all over the place then.
Yes, you would. I am. I am in a lot of places.
I was going to say a lot of people took a hit when he died.
Yeah.
He had his fingers in a lot of pies, and he was helping a lot of people with a lot of projects. So
Yep.
it was the impact of him passing away was across the industry.
Yes, but we managed to get all those projects going. So I think we've only canceled one. So
That's not bad. That's good. That's good that you're able to make that recovery because, like Scott said, it was very impactful. You know his passing.
It was. I mean, that was my full-time job and my boss and a good friend of mine. So
yeah.
But anyway, so we canceled at the time because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know if I had a job in the immediate thereafter because it was only me and Stuart at Nocturnal Media. We were the only two employees. So at the time we canceled it, and we took some time to just get some space, and so then we brought it back. So it's been a long road with some interesting hurdles that most Kickstarter companies probably won't encounter.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I hope for their sake they don't. But we're back. So
yeah, and you funded pretty quick, right? If I remember,
we hit 20,000 on the first day,
and
it's been kind of a slow burn since then.
Tell me, how many Kickstarters is this for your company again?
This is my 9th, I believe.
Okay.
9th with my company, but I've done over a dozen more as a project manager for Nocturnal Media or other companies.
Okay.
Of the Gallon Night games, all of them but one were delivered on time, with multiples being delivered early. I mean, our first one, Tiny Frontiers, was 3 months early.
Okay, clearly I failed. I'm not hearing you correctly because you said something about delivering a Kickstarter early. That's not possible.
Stop! Don't go there, Scott. Just stop right now.
Okay, this doesn't seem possible.
Several of Nocturnal's projects that I project manage are obviously late for clear reasons.
Yes,
but they're all delivering and they're all moving forward. Actually, it's going to be an interesting next couple months when I think we deliver on 12 projects in 4 months somehow.
That's pretty goddamn impressive, sir.
So I've seen a lot of the hurdles Kickstarter has to offer, and on the Gallon Name Gauge side, I managed to overcome almost all of them. So
now, who are you going to be using for your shipping and distribution?
I ship out of my garage.
Okay, good. Yeah, just don't. One of the things I have encountered in a lot of Kickstarter is a lot of people use Ship Naked.
I've received packages from them. I've never used them. Our hobby store distributor is Studio 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic. So we'll, eventually Tiny Wastelands will be available in fine hobby stores everywhere through Studio 2.
All right, cool. I was just saying, stay away from Ship Naked because
it saves a lot of money if I ship out of my garage. So
that's perfect.
And I'm not so successful that I still can't do that.
Because they use DHL, and DHL is the worst shipping company ever. So
well, clearly you've never received a package from OnTrack.
Oh, okay.
There's still time, Jared.
Oh, one could only hope. Now, I was shoot. I was going to ask something now. I completely lost.
You're blanking? I'll pick up. How about this?
No. Before we go to the other ones, it was something we were talking about the challenges.
Yep.
Successes, and we were talking about delivery. We were talking about. I know what I was going to talk about. Okay, related to the game and delivery, because I know you're doing the hard, the softback.
Yep.
Now I also saw. I guess this kind of goes back to mechanics. Is you're also going to have cards with the game.
Yes, the Enclave deck. So the idea of the Enclave deck is at the start of a year in game terms, you can draw a card from it and it will present a sort of hurdle or challenge your community faces that you have to try to overcome, or you can ignore with sort of a consequence or a benefit. Now, just like the GM can use it as an adventure prompt or a springboard.
Now, the Enclave deck, is it only on the cards? Do you also have charts as well? If people don't want to use cards?
It's only on the cards, but everybody will be getting the PDF, so you could simply just open the PDF and look at it if you wanted. You could roll a dice and go to that page number.
Okay.
It wouldn't be difficult.
Is the Enclave deck with these challenges, is this something you could also use to generate randomly the attributes of a community or the threats to a community that is randomly encountered, or
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's designed to sort of, so at the start of the fictional year, the GM me would draw a card and look at it. It would say, "Oh, there's been a leak in the fuel stores. You lose X fuel rating, which is a stat your enclave has that powers your vehicles. If you don't have fuel, you can't leave the town with your vehicles."
Mhm.
And so the players would then have to go try to find fuel. Right, and it'd be up to me. Why is there a leak? Was it sabotage? Was somebody inside the community betraying us? Was there a raid and we didn't notice that something happened? There's a lot of flexibility there that the GM can use to kind of springboard into an adventure or story.
Yeah, if it's just stolen, maybe it's still in town.
Right. There's less than there was supposed to be.
Yeah. Very nice.
Now that being said, with the cards, do you plan on doing any other aspects to use cards in the game?
Yes. So there is a stretch goal that has not been unveiled. So this is the first everybody's hearing about it. Hey, look at that!
Hey, exclusive!
Where we will actually be taking the scavenging decks and turning scavenging tables in the book and turning them into a deck of cards that you can draw from.
Very nice.
Cool.
And the card deck will also be laced with random encounters.
Oh,
so there'll be like a 60 card deck, and 50 of them will be just you draw a card. It'll have like roll a d6. You find whatever item is on this d6 table, and then 10 of them will be like, you encounter a wild radioactive jackalope. Here's its stats on the card.
I hate those. They're the worst.
And the GM, if they didn't want to deal with the random encounters, just take them out.
Okay.
They'll be clearly marked, so you don't need them.
Now, the production of your, because I know you said you're on Drive-Thru RPG, so I'm sure you're familiar with Drive-Thru cards. Are they going to be producing the cards for you?
It honestly just depends. So the Enclave deck, I think we need 500. At 500, we'll probably do a print run of the Enclave deck. If we do the scavenging deck and we don't get enough add-ons, then yeah, we would just do them through print on demand.
Okay.
I was only asking because I've done a couple of small little games through Drive-Thru cards, and the quality is really good. And just for consistency, because
we've printed multiple decks in the past for Tiny Dungeon, and then we have a card game called Moods of the Mad King that uses Drive-Thru as our card supplier.
Okay, cool. Because then that's a good tool for, like, say you want to add stuff to the game. You could easily just, hey, it's available on Drive-Thru cards, and people could just order a new deck or something, or replacement cards
and new cards. Yeah. At minimum, I mean, after the campaign, both these decks will be on Drive-Thru for regular consumer purchase.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because they do good work. I was on board when they started in like 2012. Yeah. So they've come a long way. They do really good work. So that's cool because I always like the idea of cards in the game. I don't like them to be the sole source of.
I'm a big fan of play aids in card form.
Yes. Because it always reminds me back, like in the early 90s, Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition used to do spell cards.
Right.
So instead of like a lot of, before those came out, we would write your spells on like index cards, and having the cards with the information is cool. I don't like them to determine everything in the game, but they're good. Like you said, they're good supplementary material to like randomly here's, like you said, scavenging or equipment or spells, mutations, whatever the case may be. So that's cool that you're going that route.
Yeah. So that's the later stretch goal. So that'll be our $35,000 stretch goal.
Cool. So hopefully people seeing you on this will help get you up there.
And if we don't hit it, we'll make them anyway. They just won't be part of the Kickstarter.
Okay, cool.
They're written. They're going to come out. But the question is, do we have enough, money to do the layout and the design and the art on them? That's kind of up to Kickstarter. Otherwise, it takes longer and sort of just trickles out as we get to it.
Cool. That's cool. All right. For this game, the Tiny Wastelands, did you have any fictional inspirations, whether they're books or movies or anything like that?
So I'm a big fan of the more traditional apocalyptic stuff. Fallout, Mad Max, The Road, Postman,
Boy and His Dog.
Boy and His Dog, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The more classical, that's my favorite version of the apocalypse stuff, like the kind of gritty, hard scrabble, almost like a Western in a lot of ways. Yeah. But I will say my favorite post-apocalyptic movie is The Six String Samurai.
Thank you.
You're good people.
Only one man could kill this many Russians. Bring me his guitar.
I don't do polka, baby. I love that movie. I own it on DVD and VHS. Like
good.
So that is my favorite movie.
Are you familiar with the miniature line, Atomic Cafe?
Loosely, yes. We don't use miniatures a lot in my RPGs, even at home.
No,
so
I can't even imagine. But for a pickup game like this, but if you were a fan of Six Stream Samurai, the guys who do that Atomic Cafe miniatures, it's all Six String Samurai. They even have a Six Stream Samurai miniature, and if you swing that way, I don't know.
I have just ordered it.
You have just ordered it. Yeah, they've got a number of things that are
throwing money at the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, I can't order it. Where is it? I can't find it. It's out of stock everywhere.
Yeah. It may in fact be out of stock.
Nope. eBay saved me.
Okay, thank God.
But yeah, so I love Six String Samurai. That's probably as gonzo as I get. It's pretty gonzo, to be fair, but
it is pretty goddamn gonzo.
Yeah.
But and then when it comes to RPGs, Atomic Highway, was always my favorite, the more classic. I never really got into Gamma World.
Get off the show right now.
No, it's not that I dislike it. I have lots of friends who love it, and I played it. It's just, for me, the Fun Apocalypse is the kind of the road warrior.
Yeah, remember
out my car, death race.
Yeah, remember when this man came of age, Jared? He's like, he wasn't there in the beginning when all we had was Gamma World. Remember?
Gus, I don't know, Alan, if you could see. Let's see if you can. Okay, you see. I'm trying to point
I
here.
can see your Gamma World boxes.
See that shelf right there?
Yeah.
That is every in-print book guide related to Gamma World through all 7 editions.
Ask him about his miniatures.
I don't want to. I'm afraid.
Don't.
Grenadier in the late 70s did a line of Gamma World miniatures. They did 2 large, two box sets with 12 each. Plus, they did carded miniatures. There was 52 of them. Now, I have 24 on card. That took me a very long time to collect. Unfortunately, I know I will never get all of them on card, which is very disappointing. So,
well, maybe someday they'll get reprinted on drive-through cards.
Yeah, or maybe. Well, the thing of the miniatures is because I've been on on Facebook. There's a Gamma World group that Kimber Eastland is on, and he worked for TSR and did a lot of the Gamma World work for third and I think some 4th edition. So I think he actually worked for a company that worked with Grenadier back in the day, and this subject came up with the Grenadier miniatures, and we were talking about it. He said that a lot of the latter half of the line, like the higher numbers, like the 30s, 40s, 50s, they produce very small numbers of them. So that's why most of those are very difficult to find, period.
Gotcha. There you go.
So
interesting. I know that.
There you go.
Talking about the other authors, because you've got a ton of other authors in here doing your settings. I'm, I guess I'm Facebook acquainted with James Gates and Angus Emberson, but the rest of them are people who are mostly new to me, or I don't have a personal connection with, even if I've seen their work. Tell us about some, quick, what kind of apocalypses you've got in your lineup.
Yeah, let me pull up my actual Kickstarter and I will just grab that because there's so many that I don't remember off the top of my head anymore.
No, I wouldn't expect you to. It's like you got like 12 or 15 freaking apocalypses.
So we've got Wendelin Reichel wrote one where you're on a oil platform. Sort of it's kind of a bizarre your tradeway station for post-apocalyptic travelers on an oil platform in the middle of the ocean.
Okay.
There's Tea of Diamond Salvage is the aftermath of an alien invasion where they just packed up and left tons of alien tech and kind of wrecked the world.
Mm-hmm.
You have Posthuman Terminus, which is a nanite apocalypse where people have been modified and changed. Liz Chypraticools, she's from Denmark, I believe. Somewhere over there. I'm thinking it wrong, and she'll be mad at me now. But she's got one where you're a robot, and all your human creators are dead, so you're trying to find ways to keep your battery charged while wandering around.
I gotta admit that the little blurb for that one seems super sexy.
It was pretty great.
Yeah.
Marie Brennan, who is author, she publishes the Naturalist Guide to History, I believe. She's got a book series with Tor, I think. She's doing one where a mutant jungle is trying to eat the world.
That sounds like Brian Aldiss, The Long Afternoon of Earth, where the world gets completely overgrown by vegetation.
Very similar. David Annandale, who writes 40K fiction for Black Library, is writing Phantasmagoria, where it's a kind of a surrealist, weird apocalypse where reality is broken and skyscrapers hunt you and try to eat you in the post-apocalyptic wasteland.
It's a Dadaist apocalypse.
It functionally is.
Yeah.
And then Angus is writing The Floodland, which is sort of an Atlantis-based one. Mari Murdoch, she writes for Fantasy Flight and AEG. She did L5R fiction and stuff. She's writing one where the moon crashes into the world and everything's flooding, and so you're forced to move inward. We talked about this one earlier.
Yeah.
Sean Carmen, who was the L5R story lead for AEG for a long time, is writing one called Red Fever, based on Into the Badlands a little bit, kind of inspired by that.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Weimer, who is a noted book reviewer, is writing one set in the Dakotas, so farm tractor duels and such in the Wastelands and Apocalypse. One where giant rats are what caused the apocalypse, and you have to deal with giant rats. So it's basically every first level adventurer's worst nightmare, but for eternity. Ryan Shute is doing an Ice Age. We've got one where you're sort of disease immune forest hippies, and you're locked out from massive sanctuary cities, and you're trying to deal with that. Where plague has killed mankind, but you're immune, so you've survived in the wild, and they've basically shut you out of these utopian cities. James Gates is writing one about California, and then we have one called The Second Stone Age by Diana Gunn, where robots destroyed mankind enough that there's no technology left, so mankind has reverted to a Stone Age in order to stop robots from having any sort of technology.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have John Kennedy doing Instant Matter Project, where a colony ship has that. His is crazy. It's weird.
The crater.
Yeah,
I was amused by the crater.
Yeah,
that marked your arrival on a brave new world.
Yeah, that was his is a little nuts. It's kind of is amusing. And then Darren Pierce, who wrote on the new Judge Dredd RPGs and a bunch of work for and World Publishing, 13th Age, stuff like that. He is doing one about a colony ship that crashes on a new planet. So
that sounds like oh god, it's like
Pandorum. You thinking Pandorum?
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a wide swath of themes throughout these settings, and then all of these authors are pros in some sense. You know, either they work in the RPG industry or they're professional fiction writers, or something like that. So these are all very talented folks.
What's the basic word count of a micro setting?
1,500 words. Comes out to about 6 pages in our book.
Wow. That's actually more difficult than writing 3 or 6, because you have to say everything in the absolute least amount of prose. That's brutal.
And then our 30,000 stretch goal is a mutant animal setting where you play not Ninja Turtles in a half shell. That would be copyright infringement.
Yes, it would. What's the Jared? What was the comic book that did that? The Nth Generation.
The Last Generation.
Yeah, The Last Generation. Yeah, there was was it 80s?
It's Black Tie Studios published it in 1987. Yeah. Only 5 issues came out because one of the main writers who was working on it, passed away. So they stopped the development of it. The artwork was done by, I can't remember, but he's just a really good artist. But yeah, anyway, Last Generation, you can track it down online. It's only 5 issues, but it's a really good post-apocalyptic comic book setting, kind of Gamma World-ish.
Nice. So so our 30,001 is and it will include new random tables to create a randomly mutated animal with intelligence and stuff. So you can kind of just roll up a character on 46 and move on.
Okay. Very cool, sir. That's quite a lineup, actually. You got some really good people on board.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
What was the one setting that you just didn't see coming?
I sort of quit thinking about that until they sent me their pitches. After this is the 4th time we've done this.
Yeah.
So now I just kind of like, I guess I'll see what I get when I set this out.
Okay. All right. You've been
caught me.
surprised enough times that you just stopped being surprised?
After the time travel kaiju hunting mecha pilots where you play Amelia Earhart and Abraham Lincoln and giant robots and mechas and monsters, I sort of just that broke me, I think, past that. So you will probably never get weirder than Abe Lincoln in a steam-powered mecha with a fire axe. So
wow. Yeah,
you might, but not likely.
It's hard.
Yeah. The only way to take him out is with a steam-powered John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah, it was after that I'm like, okay, well, this will never catch me off guard again.
You can say you've seen the elephant. There are no surprises left. All right. Wow.
So any final words about the project that you want to add that we maybe didn't get to?
Please come back it. I would love to take your money, and in return I will give you a great little minimalist RPG.
And it sounds like you will. So, folks, you could find Tiny Wastelands on Kickstarter. Just type in Tiny Wastelands, and you'll find it. There was also a link to it in the post I made about this. I will also post about GallantKnightGames.com as well, where you could find his other fine products. So, all right, folks. So that's it for today. Again, Alan, thank you very much for joining us. I really enjoyed talking to you, finding out more about your game, your system, and all the other cool games it sounds like you have going on there, too.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
I got to ask, out of personal interest, do you have a pulp era, sort of game of, 1930s punching Nazis? And
you mean like my game Astounding Thrills and Other Fantastic Pulp Tales?
That would be exactly the game I was looking for.
That will be on Kickstarter later this week.
Oh,
not this week,
okay.
not this week, this year.
Okay. You're going to kickstart that later this year. Well, so you've got my money already.
With our Tiny D6 line, we do normal Kickstarters. I have what's called the Venerable Knight Classics, which is a line of OSR-inspired Sword and Wizardry white box takes. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those. So they actually run for a week. It's all print-on-demand delivery through Drive-Thru RPG, so there's no shipping. You just get a code, you print, you move on.
Cool.
Very, very simple, straightforward campaigns.
All right, cool. You've got my money on that one.
Excellent. I'll make sure to tell you when it's up.
Thank you, sir.
All right, cool. So again, folks, this was Alan Barr from Gallant Knight Games. Their Kickstarter project is Tiny Wastelands. Okay, again, you can find it on Kickstarter. If you like what you heard about the project, please go to Kickstarter and help support Alan and his team to produce the best quality game you can have. He's already doing a lot of good stuff with that. But so see if you could get it higher to get more stuff for your Kickstarter. Now, just so you know, Alan. Later in the week, probably in a couple days, like I said, well, right when we stop this is going to post to YouTube, and people who are watching already know it's on YouTube. But I'll send you the direct link to the YouTube so you could post it around. I will also be ripping the audio and posting that to the blog, and I'll let you know when I have that posted to the blog, because sometimes people just want to download the MP3 and listen. So
sure,
it'll give people access to that. It'll be on iTunes as well because we're connected to that. So. And again, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, if you already are subscribing to the channel, thank you. If you have not, I know I don't see people do this all the time. There's a button down there to subscribe. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Go to podcast.groundzero.com, which is our blog. Okay, that's where, again, is the main hub for all that's going on with the podcast at Ground Zero. It posts out to all the social media, but that's the hub where I post everything. The best way to keep apprised of what's going on with podcast at Ground Zero is just to subscribe by email or RSS feed, because as we know, all the social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all these people are changing all their algorithms. And just because you like us on Facebook, you can still like us on Facebook. That'll be great. but there's a good chance that you're not going to see what's happening because, we don't post enough, so you're not going to see us. So the best way to stay is go to the right-hand column on podcast@groundzero.com. There's a place to put your email and submit, and you will only get an email when I post something new on the blog. There's already over 360-something people subscribed to the blog, which is good. So that's the best way to keep up with Podcast at Ground Zero. So that being said, again, Alan, thank you. Thank you, Scott. And thank you, everybody, all our friends. We call the people that watch and enjoy our show the Friends of the Apocalypse. So we always thank our Friends of the Apocalypse for joining us for this show. Next show is we are going to be talking about, finally, the third book in the Silo series. We're going to review Dust. We're going to look to try to get that done next week, possibly Monday. I planned it with Scott, but I have some other logistics that have come up, so I might not be able to do it Monday. Me and Scott will talk offline about that. But that is going to be our next show, is we're going to cover Dust. And that's it, folks. So, again, Alan, thank you. Scott, thank you. And, again, folks, remember Tiny Wastelands. Go back it on Kickstarter. And that's it. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the Wastelands.